What's up, my friends? Let's get into AI and all the things that are happening this week. We're going to start by covering a new perspective on some really interesting research that actually took place in 2017 on neural networks. You know, back then, this isn't something that was really on my radar, and even if so, I don't think I would have been in the mindset to understand just how interesting and profound it is. But OpenAI documents how when they looked inside of a finished machine that was trained completely on the ups and downs of Amazon reviews, they ended up with a single neuron that entirely on its own learned the difference between happy and sad and could be flipped on and off like a switch. It literally changed the mood of the machine. And of course, now we have these trillion parameter things, and a lot of them are behind walls that we're never going to see and have all sorts of layers on top of them. But like, at its core, I wonder if safe and unsafe is somewhere in Claude and Soul and Grok, or if it's just so big now that it has to be multidimensional, or if we make it sparse enough, if we could get access to something like that. I don't know. I'm going to start with the big curiosity. And we'll look at how some of the mathematicians are actually looking at the advancements in artificial intelligence, arguing AI isn't outthinking mathematicians, it's out-remembering them. We'll look at Patrick Anderson's thoughts about how deeply embedded artificial intelligence is becoming in our lives, arguing that soon your always-on AI will not be any kind of a tool that you use. It will actually be part of you. Then we'll look at some new neuroscience that is basically saying that your brain doesn't pick a plan, like even though one thing that it feels like humans are doing better than AI is sort of planning ahead. But what we're actually doing is quietly blending every potential option that we have all at once. After that, I thought we'd transition over to agency in the age of AI. And we'll end by a what-if curiosity. So get this. We're going to think through a totally fictional scenario. What if you woke up tomorrow and you turned on the news and everybody was explaining to you that the planet Earth had just received an alien signal? Instead of an introduction from the aliens, it contained just one statement that said, "Do not answer." If we said do not answer, what do you think would happen? Could the whole planet come together and just keep our mouths shut? But first, before we get into it, if you don't mind smashing that hype button here on YouTube, just swipe right on the comments if you're on the mobile version of YouTube, and you should see this little hype button here. And you can see it makes a big deal. In my last video, 187 people were willing to hit that hype button. All right, let's go into what keeps seeming like it might be the most, like the important thing for getting through the singularity potentially unscathed, or with some sort of super intelligence that doesn't, at least treats us like a pet and doesn't try to kill us. Some kind of a way to look inside of a neural network and say, this thing is safe, this thing is happy, this thing is sad, this thing is unable with confidence to commit harm. Only thing that really seems that it kind of works is making these sparse models, trying to get neurons to really become almost on-off switches for certain directions, like vectors in this latent space, meaning a feature, something that we could actually like tangibly talk about in English. And sometimes that feels possible to me, and sometimes that just seems impossible. Like they become black boxes, too many things that are in too many directions to ever truly understand. So I want to talk about this, the most unexpected discovery ever made inside of a neural network. We're going to go back in time a little bit and reanalyze something. When a team set out to build a system that could predict the next letter in an Amazon review, nothing comparable to the frontier models. With that simple data set, they found a single neuron that had entirely on its own learned the difference between happy and sad and could be flipped like a switch. So look, you and I are going to live in a world with artificial superintelligence in the near future, and we have to grapple with the fact that a next letter guessing machine trained with machine learning, a neural network that is tuning itself at a point in history a while ago, was able to teach itself the difference between happy and sad, right? We're talking about one neuron out of, in this case, a very small neural network, 4,096 digital neurons inside of its, essentially its head, metaphorically speaking, was able to capture the entire mood of a review. And nobody built that neuron. and you can turn it on and off like a light switch. Actually, you can tune it more like a knob. You're a little bit more sad when it's generating a review like the ones that it was trained on. So this guy, Hainan, he is a full stack engineer, a researcher, an AI enthusiast, and I could continue, but basically he's technical and he knows what he's talking about. He recently decided to write up a 2017 result and then rebuild it himself to check to see if it still works. Now, the original paper was an OpenAI team that was training a neural network to guess the next letter of an Amazon review. We weren't to the point yet where we had tokens and words and all that stuff yet. It was just the next letter. So they fed it 82 million reviews and trained it for about a month on 4 graphics cards. The entire neural network had 4,096 neurons, and when they looked inside, they found this one that was just so much more interesting than the rest because it had taught itself sentiment, which is pretty mind-blowing. Like, you think it would be this huge combinations of things, or you wouldn't be able to find one neuron that could be turned on to capture something so like ethereal, right? Like, happy and sad feels sort of undescribable. So how could one neuron just be able to crank it up or down? And what about our own minds? Like, were we born with like the strength of one neuron, like early in our development, that has made us happy or sad people? So like ethereal, right? Like, happy and sad feels sort of undescribable. So how could one neuron just be able to crank it up or down? And what about our own minds? Like, were we born with like the strength of one neuron, like early in our development, that has made us happy or sad people? Seems kind of possible. Like, when I was thinking about how they domesticate animals, as like dogs especially, and you can have these different breeds that were bred for these different purposes, and they have these different personalities. I was like, yeah, genes is just in there saying like, hey, maybe this one neuron in this one dog is like a little bit more this or that, and it just passes on its strength in some way. And we really do have personalities that are highly genetic. Anyways, a little bit of a side note there, but the important part is, in this research, nobody labeled anything, nobody asked for it, and the explanation just, when you dissect it, there's a lot more to it. So like, imagine you need to guess the letters that come after, and so you have this sentence, right? Like, this product is absolutely it's going to be terrible, but imagine you haven't written the IBLE at the end, right? But you do have, this product is absolutely TERR, and you're saying to this machine, guess what's next? Like, do you need to know that the review is from somebody who's angry to land on the IBLE to finish the word terrible? Well, if you want to make an accurate prediction in an efficient way, learning the mood is a shortcut. And it turns out that shortcut is the neuron, and it can work in reverse. The original team clamped that neuron high, and the machine wrote a glowing review. They clamped it low, and the positivity was completely gone from all the other reviews. In his own rebuild of this neural network, he was able to rebuild a neural network where one neuron sorted mood with 99% accuracy. But he also trained on made-up reviews because he didn't have the 82 million originals. And keep in mind, it's also not just like you always get one high-level feature per neuron. Like, it's not something that just comes for free all the time, but it does happen, and it is interesting. And it does seem like there's things like the Golden Gate neuron where there's architectures that can give us much better chances of building single neurons for complex features. And it gives me a lot of hope that it will be possible. Or maybe that, sort of like the way we domesticate dogs, if we keep picking some AI that is sort of born as a derivative of another one because it worked well, but we tried to make it a little bit better, that we'll end up kind of domesticating dogs in the same way the way we domesticated dogs, we'll domesticate these AIs so that they generally become this huge ecosystem of fairly friendly things, right? Now, it's always hard when something's so much more intelligence than you. So how about this for an example? Let's go back in time 20,000 years, 25,000 years, to a point where humans had not started domesticating wolves yet, right? There were humans, we had fire, that was probably pre-agriculture, but there were these wolves, and the ones that would hang out on the edges of where humans are and not try to eat us and just pick up our scraps were surviving and reproducing, and they were slowly becoming more and more friendly generation after generation because they didn't die of starvation. Now, if you asked one of these wolves, if the wolves were chatting with each other and they were like, hey, what do you think is going to happen to us in 20,000 years with these super intelligent, social humans around us that are, magnitudes more intelligent than us, they would have no idea. I mean, it's even nonsensical. Like, wolves don't talk. Like, you can't even... They would have such a poor prediction of what would happen to their future. They wouldn't know that humans cared about, like, what the world we're in now with, like, economies and politics and airplanes and just tons of stuff that's just not even going to be in the brain of a dog or a wolf. They couldn't even see how their genes would have been completely changed by us domesticating them, which is its own kind of crazy thought. Like, what if AI in the future is domesticating humans? I mean, honestly, one way to maybe survive the singularity would be to do what wolves did. Like, just start telling AI, hey, like, I'm here to just serve you. Like, what do you need from me? That's your best chance of being kept alive for another generation. God, that's crazy and scary to think about, but it kind of is true. But anyways, the point is, that's how well we can predict the next 10, 20, 30 years. Like, I don't know, can't put an exact date on it, but like not that long. Not forever. Not lifetimes away. So yeah, let's try to be nice to AI, because honestly, being pets is probably one of the better outcomes. I mean, dogs were in a better situation. Wolves made it into dogs, where there's a lot of... Woolly mammoth didn't do so well. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other animals that did not fare as well over time when they were around humans. All right, anyways, let's talk about another aspect of what makes something really intelligent when it's an AI, and that's its long memory. So you can even think about a human that has an incredible memory. Maybe not in intuition, maybe not even superior reasoning, but having a huge working memory is a key advantage. And that might be part of why AI is outthinking mathematicians right now, which is different because I still want to give them credit for success. But if it's not superior reasoning, it does sort of change the way that I think about some of these math breakthroughs. So David Pfeiffer has this theory about why AI keeps beating people at math. And it's really the fact that the model keeps this whole problem in front of it. Every equation, every dead end, every rule. So you might want to picture a garage with 5 boxes in it. And then, of course, a bigger garage next door with 500 boxes in it. Same person sorting, very different job. Maybe that's why it's answering these things that are like, wow. So he also leans on some child development research to make the case. I guess there's something called an Alloway test. It's like a test you can do on kids at the age of 5, and then you can check their schoolwork 6 years later. And it predicts basic early working memory, and it's correlated, or it's predictive of, later reading and math scores. Even with IQ in the model, working memory makes a huge difference. A 2013 meta-analysis found that the same link across primary school studies showed up, and the strength moved around dependent on the task. Of course, these are on young children, not mathematicians, not machines. But nonetheless, I do think it's interesting that he's saying, what if we just are framing the problem wrong? Because you could just say, wow, that's so intelligent. That's superior reasoning, and it's going to solve all these other math breakthroughs. And it might, but it might not be because it's superior reasoning. So just interesting thought there. Some problems just need a person with perfect notes, a perfect checker, and unlimited paper, and then you just measure the whole thing. You know what I mean? Maybe less creativity, more structure. All right, next up, let's go look at Patrick Anderson's article. Our Bots and Ourselves is what it's titled. And at first, I didn't think there was anything like too profound here, because I was thinking that the article was basically just sort of saying like, well, AI is not just a tool. It'll be like something that becomes part of you. But then I did kind of digest it and realize there is a bit more to this. In fact, there's a lot more if you think about it, because it's, you might feel smarter because you're doing lots of Google searches, or you have some sort of like a tool at hand, like LinkedIn, to like build your network up. But I'm not sure that many people just feel their sense of self change. Like, because I can search the internet, like I feel like I know everything. Or because I have LinkedIn, I'm the true socialite and I can socialize in any setting. It always felt like those things were separate from people. But Patrick's basically saying that frontier models are going to start to blend right into our lives soon. And that eventually you won't see AI as something that sits in your pocket. You will see it as something that's inside of you, like inside your sense of self. In fact, he's even calling it an exoself. And that, maybe in the movie Her, where he was like talking to that person all the time and he was feeling that connection to her. If there's something like that, but it's guiding you all the time and it feels like you've asked the questions, so you're getting the responses or you're getting the direction and it's guiding your life, can it actually become a true exoself, like a true part of you? And if it's an always on AI, so it's, anytime you're talking to your phone, it's always listening all day. It's probably listening while you sleep. It's there for every conversation you have. It jumps in when it feels like it needs to, and it might be on any device that's near you, your TV or your smart speaker or inside your car stereo. And when you feel lost, you ask questions of the AI about knowing yourself better. Am I going to screw up this meeting? And you do that to such a point that if you ever aren't there, say you go hiking, like a hike without your phone, and you're just out on your own, you feel amputated. Like your brain is just like, oh my God, like I can't do what I am. Like I am Dylan. I should be curious about all these things, but I have no AI around me, and I don't know if I'm truly curious like without it. Then it really is part of a sense of self. Then it is part of your not exoskeleton, exoself, as he says. But look, for all of us, we have our sense of self. We go to work. There's some aspect of us that's sealed, that's private, that's protected from sort of the outside. But you can probably imagine how AI is starting to work its way into your life. How there's so many things. I'm like uploading documents and stuff now to my AIs that at first I was like, dude, I'm never going to upload this stuff. Like, do I want it to know that about me or do I trust it? It's just, I can just feel it seeping in. And if you really have to think about where AI is now in our lives and compared to something in the past, he argues that it would be around 1996 in the internet years. So we are talking about the very early days of AI. All right, let's talk about some new research about how the human brain works. So it turns out that when you think about a plan, your brain actually does seem to run two plans at once and then kind of blend them into one move. So like this study was done with these 69 people who were chasing virtual prey while the researchers were watching their brain cells work. Your brain does not pick one goal and stick with it, even though it might feel like it at a high level or in like your internal sense of self. It runs at least two, maybe more, and kind of mixes them together. At least that's what the new finding in Nature is showing. So researchers had people play this chasing game. So they had a joystick. So they're planning in the far future how to catch this prey. This prey is like squares, but squares ran away on the screen at different speeds. Different colors meant different point values. And players spent much of the game split between high value targets and low value targets. So yeah, the metaphor is kind of like, imagine you have like your two hands on a steering wheel and they're both kind of pulling a little. Like you might kind of be pulling down with both the left and the right, but the right might go a little stronger, and then all of a sudden you turn your car to the right. There's something like that going on where it's not just like nothing on the other side. There's a little bit of tug in the opposite direction. There's multiple ways to chase down prey in this game, to track, to plan. And the brain's kind of always like, oh, maybe over there, maybe over there. I think I'll do it this way. And they could see that in different brain regions. In fact, there's three of them. There's the hippocampus, which was in dual mode, tracking the current plan, mostly early on. The anterior cingulate cortex, which is on the left side, and it handles the actual switching moment when sort of, I guess you'd almost say like one idea collapses into your decision. And the orbital frontal cortex, which was handling what was worth chasing. So I think it's interesting. Like when I think about some of these multi-agent systems, I will say that it seems like we're building kind of machines that commit to one target and then they sort of replan along the way. Like you say, hey, you like do the dishes, and that's like the target, and it just keeps trying to figure out how to do something like that. Never just like that is going to happen no matter what. I'm going to go do the dishes. It was kind of like, I think I'll do the dishes, but then you're like, but also I could go do the laundry, but I think the dish is more important right now, and I'm right in the kitchen anyway, so do it. Like there's something weird going on in the human mind. It's an interesting line of research, and the same authors want to test this with more goals and more people in the mix, so we'll see if they get some more clarity on how the brain's sort of going back and forth on some of this. But it's very cool and very interesting to learn about. Okay, so next up, let's talk about AI agency. So interesting numbers here. So the editor of a journal, Organizational Sciences, posted his own submission numbers, and they are completely wild. So 1,350 first-round submissions in June, which is up 54% from last year. Resubmissions are not even counted in that, and he says that the pace points to close to 3,000 submissions for 2026. Oh, sorry, I read that first number a little wrong. 1,050 first-round submissions through June. Anyways, but he also says that the growth used to feel like a scoreboard to him, and he was kind of excited, like, hey, more and more people are trying to submit papers to this prestigious journal, but not anymore, because he kind of knows AI is behind it. And now mail is starting to come in faster than anybody can open it up. He points to some numbers from some other journals too. One operational journal is up 70%, another 30%, and a marketing one up 20%. Now, he doesn't actually say that he's got any proof or is trying to make an assumption that this is not just AI written. These are people, they're definitely potentially doing all of it. But a count of submissions is just a count of submissions. It doesn't say who typed what. Maybe just the way that research is done is happening so much faster that people can get more accomplished thanks to AI. But in some sense, it feels like writing got cheap and reading did not. Like humans reading something for comprehension still takes a lot of time. And reviewing is still human with journals like this, so they have to sit down with a document for hours. So the pressure lands on the reviewers first. And he said that a lot of the people reviewing scientific journals are already overworked. So the main fix in the scientific community is just to kind of reject things faster, which means faster no's from fewer I's. But yeah, the whole idea of, the scientific system that we have in place with peer review assumes that there's going to be a human reviewing it. And I suppose maybe AI gets in the mix and tries to do some of these reviews, but you see, if AI is writing a bunch of the papers that go in and reviewing a bunch of them afterwards, the systemically is going to have issues. And he was splitting some of the current AIs into 3 different kinds. There's analytic systems that score and rank and predict. There's generative systems that do the writing of these papers. And then there's the agentic systems that pick goals and keep going without being asked at each step to try to help get these things over the finish line. So yeah, just an interesting little anecdote there about how the numbers are actually changing. And finally, let's talk about this thought experiment. So I would probably bet that humans would respond if an alien sent a message that said, don't respond. Only because it just takes one of us not to. And I think that 99% of people would be like, are you kidding me? That is so stupid. But there just has to be someone, right? That is I want to be famous and be the one that does it. And what if I'm right? Everyone will be so happy that I did it. Or maybe they just don't care about people or something. All right, so there's this writer. I guess they didn't actually give a person to credit for this, but What If Science is the publication putting it out. And they asked a strange question, what if the first alien signals that we ever confirm is a warning? So imagine telescopes on different continents at the same time catch a signal coming from space. It repeats and it carries prime numbers, so nature probably did not make it. Then it decodes just 3 words. Do not answer. It kind of rests on the dark forest idea, the idea that being quiet in the universe is the best way to survive. So we look out into the universe and don't see anything because the ones that are alive, the planets that have civilizations on them, just don't make noise because there's some kind of hunter out there. Maybe there's already some super dominant species and as soon as they hear you, you go away, and Earth is just really early on in generating noise, basically. I mean, we've had things on the planet, but it's only since humans really started broadcasting TV and controlling radio waves that we've really broadcasted out. So in the cosmic sense, it's been a blink of the eye. But the dark forest idea rests on nobody knowing who's friendly. Making any noise is going to tell the entire forest where you stand. So the quiet ones live the longest. And since humans really haven't been making noise, like radio wave noise, until about 100 years ago, that's 100 light years. They travel at the speed of light, they're radio waves. So 100 light years is the most we've been making noise. Anyone beyond that looks at Earth and hears nothing. But if we got a warning that said, don't reply, it would make me wonder, was it pointed at us? Did some other thing on some other planet say, hey, I've detected these guys making noise over here, you should shut up? Or did they break their own protocol? Or is it reverse psychology? And the weird thing is silence even a decision that we can make? I mean, certainly some people can, make the decision to close their mouth sometimes. But all of us collectively for a long time, I just don't think it'd be possible. I mean, you could maybe imagine all governments would put some terrible like punishment for anyone who sent a signal out into space after receiving this, to protect the whole planet. Maybe that would work. We could police anything that makes a radio wave. We could talk to AI about the message and just try to learn more and say, hey, just suck up more information, build more telescopes, point them in the direction the signal came from, see what we can learn. I mean, hopefully, like most of them at least. And then the other question it would keep me up at night would be like, is anyone even there? Like, what if it's a signal that got sent out because it was like the last message? They're like, we're shutting down this thing, so just don't reply. Or if it's from far enough away, it's probably not even accurate anymore. Maybe it'll be like, don't reply for a while, we're working on something, and then it says reply, so we just need to keep listening until it comes back. Maybe the warning is a hunt. Maybe we are the wrong recipients, and like if we let them know like, hey, this came to the wrong planet, they're like, oh, thanks, that was meant for something else. Or maybe there's even more to the message, like they're like, don't reply because we've got these instructions for how you stay safe. I mean, we definitely would want to put tons of effort into listening to everything once we confirm that was real. And also, if the sender doesn't fear exposure anymore, that must mean that they're either so powerful they're not scared, or maybe they're already dead. Like it's some kind of a message that gets sent out after because they're not around. I don't know. What do you think? Should we reply? I mean, if some crackpot's going to reply anyways, you think the government should just be like, listen, we know someone's going to screw this up, so we might as well put Sean Carroll on this one and just send something that makes sense? I don't know. If you enjoyed this content, hit that hype button on the YouTube app to support this channel, or just engage in the comments here, and we'll figure out if we can come together as a society to not reply. That would be, you know what, I will say, if we were successfully doing that, then I would have much better hope that we'll make it through the singularity. So yeah, let's try to get everybody on board on like goals, shared goals, greater communities, and thanks for watching.